Ahoy hoy, friends and enemies. Now I know what you're wondering. You're wondering why I haven't shipped the issue 100 video for Sonic the Comic. Actually, you aren't. People only watch me for the Dishonored videos. I have some ideas in the bank for the 500 subscriber special. Give me a moment. But I digress. The video is still not finished. I'm still working on it. But in the meanwhile, here's another detour that I made to keep my sanity. In issue 34 of Sonic the Comic, there is an article showcasing various regional variants of the comic. 4 in particular. Many of them are presently lost media. So this is also a call to arms to try and find and scan these comics. So, without further ado, presenting the French, German, Italian, and Dutch versions of the better Sonic comic. Sonic Mag, bitte und je video. I have no idea what that means. I flunked out of primary school French. I don't know, maybe BD stands for bondage and discipline. Maybe French Sonic fans are weird gangsters. It was published by Egmont in France in the year of 1994. According to Sega Retro and Sonic Retro, who are invaluable resources for my mad ramblings, there have been at least 3 issues preserved as PDF files. However, memory accounts by folks who actually read these comics as kids account for up to 6 issues, meaning 3 are lost media. For about 20 francs pre-Euro money, you would receive 2 stories per comic. The first issue contained Origin of Sonic, originally from issue 8 of STC, and the first Kid Chameleon serial from issues 7 to 12. The second issue contained Back to Reality, oop, there goes gravity, from issue 9, and the first Wonder Boy serial from issues 2 to 9. The third issue contained Megatalks from issue 10, and the first Decap Attack serial from issues 10 to 15. Now, we don't have any records of issues 4, 5, or 6, but if I had to place any bets, they would have probably contained the Sonic stories from issues 11, 12, and 13, respectively. Hi, Future Scotty again. Since recording this, I managed to find a listing for issue 5, and it seems to contain Hidden Danger, the Nameless Zone from Tales, and the second Golden Axe. This is an assumption because my French is a little bit iffy, but back to the video. They basically skipped the first 7 issues, basically. Also, the curious thing is that all of the backup stories from other Sega IPs at the time were collected in bulk. 19 pages of Kid Chameleon, meaning there's more Kid Chameleon than Sonic in the Sonic Mag. Notice how I said bulk instead of full. While comparing to the English version, I noticed the first 2 pages were truncated and the first panel changed. They likely made cuts to the entire serial to fit the page count, so to speak. Backup stories only got 5 pages, so the full 6 parts would have been about 30 pages. I assume every other Sonic backup story also got abridged in this fashion, meaning there's not much Sonic, as most other pages also featured game reviews, adverts, and other tat like that. Hi, Future Scotty again. So, remember when I said it had Tails Nameless Zone? Well, it only had like 4 pages of it, which is, if it's both parts of the serial, then that is a paltry amount. The French fans get screwed over. Okay, back to the video. The last thing worthy of note is that the first issue has a unique cover. Yeah, hi, Future Scotty again. So I noticed while editing the video that the cover actually says number 2. If you or anyone you know has a copy of the last 3 issues, or possibly more, consider scanning them and uploading them to the Internet Archive.
Turnen ist mein Lieblingsfach, Lieblingsfach, Lieblingsfach. Was ist dein Lieblingsfach? Turnen oder was?
Good old Germany. I made 2 videos already where I talk about German Star Trek book covers and interviewed the Verlags themselves. Go check them out. Please, I put a lot of work into these videos. Sonic Der Comic was published by Beste Verlag for an indeterminate period in the 90s. Sonic and Sega Retro don't have any specific years listed, but the Grand Comics database has the starting year as 1994. Kinda. There's a quirk I'll get to later. 16-ish issues were released for 3.80 Deutschmarks. This is by far one of the longest lasting regional variants. Unfortunately, what stories are contained inside are a mystery to me. All we know is that it had Sonic stories, wrestling news, and apparently an original comic strip about Mr. T, now lost media. I pity the fool who only scanned the covers. Anyway, about that quirk I mentioned earlier on the comics database. Beste Verlag actually had 3 Sonic comics. The one I just talked about, Sonic Special, which seems to be translations of various special issues STC printed, but the only one I can find the existence of is the Eternal Champions one. A price guide website claims there were 3, but the database claims 1. But the database also says there was a second volume of Sonic the comic, which lasted 5 issues. And I can tell for a fact this was a separate comic, because the only cover preserved from issue 4 is different from the cover preserved on Sonic Retro. I speculate this is actually a trade paperback reprint of the comics within Sonic the comic. And this is further compounded by this comment I found on Loostringer's blog about completely separate German reprints, confirming they did at one point possess paperback collections of these comics. So it's possible there have been more German reprints than English ones, because Revette Books only made 4 paperback volumes and half of them weren't even Sonic related, so that's cool. Once again, if you know anything or have anything, let me know. I kinda wanna see that Mr. T strip. Sonic video game and Fumetti, once again published by Egmont. Process of elimination tells me Fumetti means comics. There were 8 issues selling at 3,500 Italian lira, but I guess in Italy it's numbered a bit differently. They published 2 issues in 1993, but the moment the year changes it resets, so the numbering in year 1, issue 1, etc. No clue if it's like that for all Italian comics. Maybe I'll find out if there's a new Witch comic or something, or if it's just Sonic being weird. Thankfully, this is the comic we know the most about because every known issue is archived. Like the French comic mentioned before, they had 1 Sonic story and 1 backup story that takes up much of the mag. Curiously, they seem to be unabridged this time. Well, I only really counted the page count of issue 1's Shinobi story, and while a page is missing, that's on the PDF scan itself, so yeah, it's about 30 pages of backup stories. More than the actual Sonic stories itself. The first issue contained Mayhem in the Marble Zone from STC issue 3, and the Shinobi serial from issues 1 to 6. The second issue contained Attack on the Death Egg from issue 6, and the Golden Axe serial from issues 1 to 6. The third issue contained Supersonic from issue 7, and the Streets of Rage serial from issues 7 to 12. The 4th, 5th, and 6th issues have the same story pairings as the 3 issues from the earlier French comic, just unabridged this time. The 7th issue would mix it up a little. It was Time Racer from issue 11 and the first half of the second Golden Axe serial Plague of Serpents, so they could make room for the first half of Tales in the Nameless Zone. The 8th and final issue had Hidden Danger from issue 12 and the second half of both Golden Axe and Tales. Now, at first they skipped from the 3rd Sonic story to the 7th, but then followed a straight path, even copied France a wee bit. Makes sense, both being published by Egmont. I will say there's one thing I found in the last issue which looks fun. Apparently they gave a blank template for the cover and let kids reading draw their own and submit it to them as a sort of contest. Best to get featured in the comic. I can only find the template in the last issue, so short-lived contest. I don't have a knack for art, but oh, what the hell. Let's have a go then. If the information found online is complete, then there is no need to archive everything, save for a few missing pages on the PDFs, but that's a minor issue.
Het is zo koud en ik zit nog in de regen.
And finally, the regional variant we know next to bugger all about. Sonic Magazine from the Netherlands. Original name, I know. Literally all I can ascertain from the pages on Sonic Retro and Sega Retro is that the issues cost 5.95 Dutch guilder. From the STC Invades Europe article from earlier, we can see that the issue being shown is issue 3, so we know of 3 issues minimum. The 3rd issue contained Sonic stories from STC issues 7, 8, and 9, so they were comfortable to do multiple Sonic adventures in a single issue. With extraordinarily little to go on, I put on my big boy detective hat and started sleuthing. By which I mean I used Google. When searching for Sonic Magazine The Netherlands, I found a website called The Last Dodo, a catalogue for collectors. It was this website that let me find some information about the first 2 issues of Sonic Magazine. They were published by Semic Junior Press in 1994, and much like the 3rd issue we know, the first had the first 3 STC stories, and the second had the following 3. So there was a consistent pattern. Undoubtedly, at this pace, they would have run out of stories very quickly. Once again, if you can archive and scan anything, I would love it if you could. Yeah, so that's a sort of overview on foreign publications of Sonic the Comic, and just some fun quirks I had. I'm a man who believes that everything should be archived, all forms of lost media, so if someone with more means than I has watched this video and is in a position to, feel free to lend a hand in obscure media preservation. Sonic comics have it good nowadays. France would later have its own short graphic novel to promote Sonic 3, Sonicthehedgehog dans les griffes de Robotnik. Probably butchered the pronunciation there. And ever since IDW took over, there have been reprints for the Sonic the Hedgehog comic in French, Italian, Japanese, Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, Romanian, and Spanish. And while the release schedule varies from country to country, they arguably have some semblance of story parity. Unfortunately, I cannot find anything about the Dutch nor German. Perhaps my pals across Cultiverlag can rectify that. But still, Sonic comics are more global than ever. I'm still working on Sonic the Comic videos in the background. The issue 100 special still isn't ready. I have 15 videos already in reserve to be drip-fed at a regular pace once it is finally done. Just all the jokes will be dated and stale. Is Cerveza Crystal still a meme?